Hi, I'm Mac McCarthy, and I help people with their breakups. And today we have an interesting topic that uh, I'm going to break it down for people out of breakups, but this could be much bigger and go into much different veins and paths and trails of humans. Because if you really think about it, sometimes feelings, emotions, it's human. It's not culture. It's not you. It's how people deal with things. It's how people look at the world. And feelings are at the core of most of your decisions. So we're going to get into that today. And I really want people to contribute in this live stream. I'm starting a little bit later, but if you watch this live stream after that, please make some comments about this, because this is not something that I'm going to just go into and tell you what to do and how to do it. I want to hear from other people. I'm going to share some things. I'm going to break this down in a little bit different way than just, hey, you need to get exercise, these blanket type things that you hear all the time and a lot of people don't do. We're going to unpack this fully and completely in this live stream. And hopefully some people get some nuggets from this or something that they can apply to dealing with sadness or depression. Not saying they're the same thing, but there are some similarities, correct? So if you like this video, throw me a like. If you don't like it, that's just fine. If you want to leave a comment down below, specifically, how have you overcome sadness at moments in your life? So let's just take away the word depression for a moment and just a sad moment where you were just completely, utterly sad and you were able to overcome that in a week, a day, an hour. I'd like any kind of story. And I'm going to go through a couple stories in my own life. I haven't written them out, but the great thing about stories in your own life and moments in your own life, they're all right here, right? Or somewhere in the sky, and you're taking them out. They're in your memory. And so the best way to tell a story or convey a message is to use a personal story in your own life. That's public speaking 101, actually. So if you'd like to book a live coaching session with myself and fully unpack your breakup, or if you have other problems, I certainly am capable of helping you. If you're just overwhelmed and you want to talk to someone about some things, I'm here for you. And you would be talking to me on Skype or FaceTime. I have a calendar. You check a time. We do an hour to 2 hours and just fully unpack what's going on in your breakup, what you want to keep, what you want to let go of, and how the fuck are you going to move forward with your life? Because that's the key, right? All right. So getting into this one today, like I said, I really would like people in the comments, if you have, hello, Jesus alive today. I'm going through deep depression right now. I'm sorry to hear that. This might be a good live stream for you to be a part of today. I am in no way a specialist in depression. What I wanted to open up this live stream for today is to get some ideas from people. If we could break down, like I said, let's push aside depression for a moment. The word depression, the definition. How about this? Jesus alive today one. What's your definition of depression? I believe when I've looked it up before, it's having no hope. Someone yesterday mentioned that it's like being in quicksand and not being able to move or act on anything. So what would be your definition of that? And how would you say depression is different than being sad in a moment? It's an interesting question. And please, if you watch this live stream after it's been live, please let me know in the comments. This is not something where there's a wrong or right answer. This is an opinion-based thing. And I think the more life experience you have and the more that you've dealt with sadness, and I think everyone's dealt with sadness on a certain level. Depression certainly varies. And there's certainly some people that are clinically depressed or been depressed since they were kids, things like that. So that varies quite a bit. I would say it's safe to say in the 21st century, in the 2000s and up, there's more cases of depression. I don't have any data on that. I don't know if that's just because it's been recorded, but it seems that, when I'm 39 years old. When I was in high school, I don't remember very many people saying they were depressed. I don't remember it being something that came up a lot. Okay. Now, this is going to sound a little bit extreme, but there were times, though, the people that were quote unquote suffered from depression were people that you heard about that maybe tried to commit suicide or do something extreme. And it seems now that whether this is a good thing or a bad thing, I'm not sure. This is a live stream to unpack some things. It's not to say, well, this is wrong, this is right, this is wrong, this is right. There's no textbook I'm following here. What I believe about the situation is this: is that you define everything differently, and it's important how you define things like depression and sadness, and it's important how you define the ability to get through them or past them. Now, like I said, let me break this down. How do we overcome depression and sadness after a breakup? So this is something I'm going to come back to, because that's a specific moment. And when we look at our lives, I think sometimes, and some of us lose track that it's just series of moments, right? If you watch a movie or a Netflix series, which everyone watches Netflix now, it seems like, there's scenes, right? There's a scene, there's a scene, there's a scene. And if you watch one episode, there's an episode with one point, one person overcoming something, some beginning and end. If you think about your life, it's a series of episodes, events, moments. It's not defined by one whole thing. And what's really interesting about sports is it's recorded, right? So if you watched, there's 82 games of NBA basketball a year. And excuse me for using basketball because it's my favorite sport and it's my show, so I'm going to use basketball. But 82 games a year, everyone's, oh, it's basketball, someone wins and loses. Every game is a little different. Sometimes there's a fight, sometimes there's an injury, sometimes the coach gets thrown out of the game, sometimes a fan spits on someone. There's all these different things that actually, this is what makes sports really special. Not that a fan spits on someone, is that every game, even though there's a win and loss, is a live episode where anything can go. Correct me if I'm wrong. And your life is very similar in that way. And I think that sometimes when we're depressed, and I'm talking about my own experience, and like I said, I would fully welcome anyone that wants to. Lala, how you doing, hun? I would fully welcome anyone that has any input on this or opinions. And I think everyone, I think the live stream and the people I deal with on the live stream that come on regularly, and outsiders are welcome. But people always have to realize a lot of things are opinion. And opinions are usually based on life experience, some research. And so when someone gives their opinion, understand where it's coming from, seek to understand, not to be understood. And if you can shed some light, and instead of just saying someone's wrong and you're right, tell someone why you think what you think and what your experience is based on that. So how have you overcome sadness at moments in your life? So what if we unpacked this as a separate, we're going to unpack this as a separate question than just dealing with depression and sadness. So like I said, I'm 39 years old. I don't feel old. I don't feel too young. I feel pretty damn good, actually. But through my own life, if I'm going to just go through the Rolodex right now, and like I said, I didn't write this out, and I'm going to think about a sad moment that comes to my mind. One of the ones that really, really got me was in high school. I've talked about this before on my channel. When high school freshman year, I didn't make the basketball team. Again, basketball. So this was a huge, huge letdown in my life for me because I didn't see it coming. I was about 12 or 13 years old, whatever a freshman is in high school. I forgot. I'm not sure the exact age. And prior to that, I had played 3 years of middle school basketball where our team was highly competitive. We had played something like 55 games in 8th grade, and we were like 44 and 10, so 54 games. And I was a starter. I played regularly. I considered myself a good player. Obviously not going to be a professional. I was small for my age, but I was, I played basketball every day, probably for 2 years or 3 years. From the age of 10, I went to basketball camps. I was into the sport. I was told I was good by other people. And actually another high school that a friend was going to, the coach had approached us like, oh, why don't you go to my high school? So, I felt pretty good about making the team. Was I going to be a superstar? No. No, I didn't think of it that way. I just loved being a part of the game, and I had no problem if I made the team and I didn't play right away, but I was good enough to play. I felt like I fitted in. So first cut, I think it was first cuts, not even second cuts. And the thing about high school, and if this story seems long-winded, let me know. The thing about high school is, at least where I grew up, prior to prior to prior to making a sports team, the year before, when you're in eighth grade, you visit the school and they have a small tryout, and then they decide to put you in athletics if they think you're going to make the team. So I was already in athletics as if I was going to be on the team. So I was practicing with the team before the official next tryouts were. And so I was a part of the team with the varsity players. I got along with them really well. And so when I got cut, I was shocked. I did not see it coming. I didn't think I was the best player there, but I thought I played well enough to make the team. And I was already feeling I was a part of the team. It absolutely floored me. It was one of those moments. I didn't cry. I've never been a big crier. I can get sad, I can get uncomfortable, I can get scared. Um, and I think crying is actually good for the human soul. I didn't cry. Like I said, I was fucking embarrassed. I felt one of the lowest things you can feel is a little bit of shame. And I should have felt shame, but I did, because in my head at that moment, I thought I was good enough to make the team. Okay. And like I said, it was my lifestyle. It was everything in my life at the time. So I didn't make the team. And the worst part of that is, you know, the people around you know how much it means to you, and then they go, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that." Da, da, da. And it just layers it and makes it a little bit worse and worse. But what I did afterwards, I think, made it worse. Instead of going, I went to the coach, and the coach gave me some, like, "Oh, you need to, I've had players before that came back the next year and, made the team," but he didn't really have any kind of like, "Oh, you need to work on this or you need to work on that." He seemed like he couldn't be bothered. Um, okay. So someone had said, "Well, if you do the scorekeeping, and you do this, and this, you can stay practicing with the team and you can stay in athletics." And I had this fear at the time that there was swim class, and I didn't want to be in swim class. And I'm not scared of swimming, but I'm not a very good swimmer. So I somehow planted this in my head that, all right, take the scorekeeping job, because then you don't have to be in swim class at school, and you could stay in athletics and you could practice with the team. Well, the first game that they played and I was the scorekeeper, I didn't realize I had to be the water boy too. That was a low moment for myself. And the two other kids that were um, doing the water and doing the scorekeeping, I just felt like, wow, this is just really a low moment. But I did it. And looking back, it was tough. That was a sad fucking moment. You go from starting on a basketball team to playing with the guys to getting them water. For me, it was a hard fall at 12, 13 years old. But I joked around. I still was around the guys and stuff, but you just didn't feel the same as you did when you were a part of the team. And this was probably one of my saddest moments. And the awkward thing about revealing this to you is some other people are like, "What's the big deal?" Because I didn't give a fuck about basketball or playing on a sports team. It was a big deal to me. It was my livelihood at the time, and it was a part of my identity that I thought I was a pretty good basketball player for 12, 13 years old, and I love being a part of the team. And I overcompensated by being the water boy and scorekeeper to be a part of that, because it wasn't the same. And I never tried out again. My plan was to try out the next year and the next year and next year, and I didn't. And how did I get over that moment though? Because obviously I got through high school. I caught, it didn't fold me, right? Well, looking back, one thing that really helped in that moment was I was about 12 or 13 years old, like I said. My parents were in a really stable place. When I was a kid, my dad was a bad alcoholic. Uh, we can go into that deeper and deeper, but we don't need to. My parents almost got divorced multiple times. We moved out of the house. There was events that occurred that were bad. That being said, when you're in those events and your family's parents are fighting and there's some traumatic moments, because I don't want to go into details on that stuff. I don't know if those moments were sad because when your family's like that, you're like on alert, if that makes sense, and you're alert to what's next. I got to be on my toes. I got to figure out, hey, we might have to leave the house tonight. We might have to do this. So there wasn't. I don't remember being extremely sad. I remember being um, aware. Okay, dad just started drinking about an hour or two. You got to watch out. Once he starts getting drunk, or I got to hide the keys, or this or that. These kinds of things. There wasn't sadness there. But what I would say is that when I didn't make the basketball team, my dad had finally been sober for a couple of years, turned the corner, I suppose. My parents got along. We had dinner every night. Things I kind of took for granted, but it really probably helped that I could go home from that dark day at high school of not making the team and just feeling really low to a stable house. And there's a lot of people that's where sadness goes to depression because and I'm like I said, I'm not going to speak for everyone. Lala, you mentioned yesterday you have a different experience with it. Is that you have an extremely sad moment, and then you come home and your parents are fighting, and then your dog runs away, and then this happens, and it just and you start to feel like you can't win, you can't win, you can't win, and that's why in these really sad moments when you become an adult and there's not a safe place for you to go to or a place that you can find that love and camaraderie. um it's a lot harder to get out into that light of the tunnel. And that story that I told you about basketball doesn't end with me making the team later on or me becoming it. I didn't try out again, and I wasn't the water boy or the scorekeeper the next year. In fact, to be completely frank and honest, I was actually a really good student in sixth, seventh, eighth grade, and I think seventh and eighth grade I got pretty much straight A's. I had perfect attendance, and I just know that I have perfect attendance because my my mother has a shed or a shack where they, keep all this old stuff. And I was going through it recently because my parents had moved houses, and I didn't know they even kept track of this in middle school, but I had perfect attendance, I think for every quarter. And I got pretty much straight A's, if not one or two B's, seventh and eighth grade. Could the school have been easier? Yeah, sure. I don't know. Whatever. But when I went to high school, I was in a couple honors classes. And when I didn't make basketball, my grades went way down. And I didn't hang out with like a really bad group, but I obviously didn't hang out with the basketball team as much. Uh, but it affected my school. It affected about me caring about other things. Now, I didn't go completely dark because like I said, I think the anchor was that my home and my home life was um, very stable at that age. And why I'm sharing this with you is just the first thought in my head of a moment where I was really sad. And I felt sorry for myself for a moment. And like I said, I felt shame and embarrassment. Now, probably I'm trying to think of the next moment in my life that was just sad and hard to swallow. Well, I'm gonna say probably, the deepest, darkest moment was my breakup of 10 years ago. By far. By far and away. I'd never felt that dark, that low, and that sad, and I am gonna say depressed. And so that moment that I just shared about not making the basketball team, which some people would go, "What's the big deal?" At 12 or 13 years old, it was a big fucking deal. It was. It was a smack. It was a smack to my soul. And you know what? Looking back, total wrong approach. If I could do it over again, it would be like, you know what? Um, if you want to make the basketball team, work hard, work on your game, uh, do all these things rather than, oh, I'll just be on the scorekeeping. And I think one of the excuses I had, like I said, I was short when I was a freshman in high school. I was about 5'1", I think 5'2". I'm 6 feet now. And I didn't grow till I was 17 or 18. I was a late bloomer. But there was another kid on the team that was short also. And so it was, I didn't take accountability and responsibility in that moment and go after what I wanted. But I didn't, like I said, I didn't really have, I mean, I've been fired from a job here and there. I'd had a few, I'd had some like breakups or different things, but like really, really deep sadness. No. But that breakup of 10 years ago, that I had never felt before. Now, for me personally, this is my own experience. And like I said, please chime in on how you feel about how depression affects you, because I am not highly experienced with it. So I would full disclosure, I'm not as sensitive or compassionate as I would be if it was something I dealt with since I was a little kid or something like that. And I'm aware of that. And that's why I kind of want to talk about this today, because so many people say they have depression. And I do think that words and definitions of words count. And so let's go into this story if you're with me so far. So I was 27, just about to turn 28 when I broke up, with my ex of 10 or 11. It's going to be 11 years ago, I think now. Ground zero, we break up. I won't go into the specifics. Knew it was coming. This, that, and the other. This, that, and the other. We were together 5 years. We had a really good relationship. We lived together. Yada 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 yada. I thought when we first broke up, looking back subconsciously, that we would probably get back together and she'd come back to me and say sorry and she fucked up. I think I thought that. I know I thought that. And I thought I was making a power play. But then after a couple of weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, some things came up and I started to think to myself, nah, this might not be coming back. You know what I mean? And it's so great to feel that I can laugh about this shit now. So in that moment, I was sad in the beginning, right? I was sad, I was upset, I was scared because I was like, like I said, we lived together for 4.5+ years. So it was a very empty room in that moment. And I was scrambling because, like I said, I figured, she'd come back. It turned into depression about a week or 2 weeks in when I felt like, oh my goodness, like I felt like there was cold air pumping through my heart. And I had never felt this feeling where I couldn't snap out of that dead stare of, you're hanging out with friends. Again, basketball. I was playing basketball at the YMCA. I had a group over there. And I remember I just couldn't, I was playing basketball and I'm thinking about it. This is some mouse wheel in my head. Dot, 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 dot. And I remember like seeking out different people to talk about it. And I had this, when I was in real estate, there was a guy that was a trainer for the real estate company, and he was a really good guy. And I think he was even a reverend or a pastor or some sort, but a really good guy. And I really respected him. And I somehow reached out to him. I don't know why. He really liked me though, when I was in training and stuff. So he met me for lunch, and I'll never forget this. I'm complaining about my breakup. I'm complaining about this. I'm going on. I'm frantic. Wasn't crying. And he goes, well, it sounds like you got depression. And that word was unacceptable to me. I was like, that seemed so far-fetched to me. I wasn't willing to accept the word as that's what I was. I was more upset um, by the results of the breakup and where it was headed. The reality, looking back, and this is something I'll share in my book in the future. This is how I looked at how it got to the point of depression. I had basically come to a point in my life that beyond my relationship, I didn't really like my job. Um, my family, who I'd been very close to, had moved about 2 hours away, which was supposed to be a good thing because um, where we had lived, we had all been living together, which was a crowded house. But it was great camaraderie, great, family being there for each other. And when they moved, it was a huge void. My sister and my niece and nephew lived with me for a couple of years. And it was a huge, huge void. And I thought it was like, oh, we'll get the house to ourselves, me and my girlfriend. We got a roommate, this, that, and the other. It wasn't good. So that was something that was the first time where I really felt a void from, my niece and my nephew was 5, 6 years old, and my niece was 10, 11, and I was taking them to practice. I was a coach to my nephew's basketball team. I did a lot of things with them. And it really hurt me when they left, and I didn't address it. So I was in real estate. Real estate had gotten cold, but I'd always had this feeling that I didn't really like real estate. Okay. I like there was the people, not all, but some of the people you work with, the desperation of some people, it just didn't line up. It just didn't line up for me. And I knew it. And I always wanted to be a teacher. And I kept neglecting that. So beyond the breakup, I had these things going on where I hadn't created this, but I had to deal with this distance between my family that I was very close to, specifically my sister and my niece and nephew. Then I had to deal with the fact that not only did I not like my job, but the economy had just gotten slammed. So this was like 2007, I believe it was. And so this is right when REOs started and repossessions and all this stuff. So it was like doom and gloom if you were a negative person, right? The reality was it was a real opportunity for selling REO homes and stuff, but I was in such a negative place. I also had, like I said earlier, when my sister and my niece and nephew moved out, had moved in a couple, because the house we were in had another 2 bedrooms and a bathroom, and they rented the house with us. Bad fucking move. My girlfriend of 4.5 years, this other couple lived in the same house, and they were a couple too. They're nice people, nothing bad to say about them, but 2 couples in their late 20s sharing a house, bad move. It was awkward. Plates were left in the sink. Someone would be out for dinner. Like, it wasn't a big enough house to do this. I did save a lot of money on rent. It did have a strain on the relationship. So all these things, why am I mentioning all these things? Because that sad moment of breaking up was just the match. There was all this other shit going on that so let me put this in another way. My girlfriend that I broke up with, and this wasn't one of those things where she just broke up with me. There was an ultimatum. There was some things going down. I'm actually the one that said to get out in so many words, and she said, fine. That being said, her situation, she had a job she loved that she was growing from. She was just starting to, I forgot what it's called when you do the cycling and cycling class. She was really into the gym. She had redeveloped a new group of friends from, I think, from high school and stuff, but was hanging out with them quite a bit and happy with that. And her parents and her siblings lived about 10 minutes from where we lived. And so when my family moved away, which she was very close to, she just circled over to them and started hanging out with her family more. Well, I was never that close with their family. So it was just like, oh, I'm going to go to my parents' house for dinner. I'm going to go do this. So all these things were lined up. Why am I saying this? Well, when she broke up, it wasn't as hard a fall because she moved back with her family. Her job was going well. She had a great social life. There was a lot of things I didn't agree about the social life. But what I believe happens is when we layer all the problems and we actually put it into one big bubble, and then it blows up and it's like life sucks. If you can unpack them, and correct me if I'm wrong, if this resonates with anyone that's had depression or sadness, or has had a moment where you feel, and to me, it was overwhelming in that it's just like you feel like, oh, everything's going wrong. And then you start filtering, you literally start filtering, oh yeah, this is going to go wrong. This is going to go wrong. So for example, this is a good example of, and someone goes, oh, I just have bad luck right now. So, and tell me if this is long-winded because I'm going on and on and on this story. Are you with me so far? So I break up, the market's down. I did have multiple clients that were buyers that I was working with as a real estate agent, residential agent. I had this one buyer, all cash, and their price range was between 1.5 million and 3 million. They were well off. They were really cool. They liked me. We went and saw multiple properties. They were great people, and they were going to buy something. But when you're a real estate agent, it doesn't work like someone just goes, oh yeah, I'll buy this. It could take a year sometimes. It could take 6 months. It could take eight months, and you don't get paid. So about a month after the breakup, about 3 weeks after the breakup, I'm going through the breakup. It's tough. It's rough. It's all this. I'm not broke or anything like that. I had money in the bank. So that part of my life wasn't bad. It was just that I didn't like the job that much. This couple finds a house. I believe the house was about 1.8 million or $2 million. It was in that price range. They make an all cash offer. It was multiple offers. This is when the market's down. This is a commission that I would have cleared 30 to 35 grand. Okay. And this is 10 or 12 years ago. We sign the contract, it gets accepted. There's something called contingencies when you buy a house. I don't know because we got people from different places in the world. Basically, they had a contingency to check the foundation of this home that was 100 years old. It was built in the early 1900s or something like that. You know what I mean? And it was owned by some Chevron bigwig, lottie-dottie-dottie. Beautiful house. Old. So they get their own guy to check the foundation. There's a 14-day contingency. Everything's signed off for this, signed off for that. We're good to go. And here's the crazy part, folks. I couldn't even get excited about possibly getting 35 grand commission because I'm like, yeah, I could still, it's not in the bag, but like it's 35 grand. It's a nice payday off a commission, right? I've been working with these people for a long time. So, "13th day before the contingency, they call up." I remember the guy's name, Bruce. "Oh, Bruce is great. We'll bring him over here. He's a great guy." So they picked their own foundation guy, which no one knew of from my real estate office. Never heard of him. He wasn't necessarily a guy that's into foundations or old homes. He comes in. I'll remember it. I remember it. He's knocking on the foundation. Oh man, you don't know what's behind this and this and this. Basically wrote up the possibility that there was like $200,000 in foundation damage. They're like, oh, well, we're out of the deal. So what do I do? Oh, this is just how life's been. Like, oh God, like, yeah, they're not, the buyers back out. So this was actually, if I was in a positive state, an opportunity for the buyers to get a better price. If I would have been better at being the middleman in that situation, maybe the buyers would have bought it. Instead, I was like, oh yeah, the the selling agent wasn't very, because the selling agent was pissed, right? Because the selling agent, this is the selling agent. How should I describe this? When you do real estate in California, you have a selling agent and a buying agent. And so it's also called the listing agent. Now they're going to have to put that in the disclosures and drop the price. And the lady was pissed, and I knew the lady, and she sold a lot of property. I told my buyer that the lady was pissed. Well, this pissed off the buyer, and that was a dumb move because it was a positive thing. We could have got a better price on the house. Cut a long story short, didn't make the deal, and the buyer said, "You know what, Mac? This was so stressful. This was so hard. We're just going to take a break." So not only did I lose the deal, the buyers decided we're not going to buy. I lost a $35,000 commission 3 weeks after the breakup. Like I said, maybe 5 or 6 months earlier. Like I'm living with another couple that's going to get married in the next 6 months. That's fighting and lovey-dovey half the time. They live at my fucking house. Not a very good way to be when you're in a breakup, to live with another couple. It's fucking annoying, right? It's annoying. It's uncomfortable. And then the girlfriend will be like, "Oh, hey, Mac. God, you look like you lost a lot of weight. How have you been? Are you okay?" It's like, get the fuck away from me. You know what I mean? So that was my depression. I don't know. Like, here's the thing about shit like this, right? You look back at it. When I was in the middle of it, it's like, oh my God, complain, fuck, like everything's bad, right? That shit was my fault. This is the part where I wish I could go back and know what I know now. Now, we have this huge industry of self-improvement, okay? And self-improvement books, and I've read a lot of them and stuff like that. And it gets to a point where a lot of the stuff gets repetitive because it's the same message, but it's just remixed, right? Right. It's like a song that's been fucking remixed 1,000 times. Take responsibility for your actions. I didn't even fucking, that didn't even register in my mind. It was like, oh, the selling agent fucked up the deal. Oh, these people backed out. I knew they were going to do it. Oh, my roommates don't even know where I'm coming from, and they're annoying as hell. Oh, my ex-girlfriend's just drinking every night with her friend. Like, blame. Now let's reverse that for a moment. I brought another couple in to be roommates. That was my idea. I had been a real estate agent for 3 years and was in a very good position to make some good money and had some good buyers. And even though those buyers walked away, they still liked me and would work with me in the future. And 2 years later, when I moved away, they still worked with my mentor and an agent I had worked with, and they had given me a cut of the commission because they liked me so much. My life wasn't that bad. My outlook, my filter on everything was completely negative. Therefore, I was getting what I was putting out. And I felt sorry for myself, to be honest. Well, the one thing I did, so this is the part, I went through all these events because to me in that moment, and this isn't to say that, oh, this is really what depression is. This is what depression was to me at the time. It was an overwhelm of a stack of different things that I felt like were out of my control, that were against me, and that I wasn't taking responsibility for. That's my bout with my version of depression. And I think it's fair to say that there's different versions and there's different bouts. And here's the thing about these kinds of stories. Oh, I had it much worse. Okay. This isn't a competition on who had worse depression. I'm just saying how I dealt with it. I'm sharing some stories of moments like that. And I'm saying when I talked about that high school moment where I got cut from the basketball team, that would have been a lot darker had not my family life, my parents specifically, my home life wasn't pretty stable because I could come home and relax. So going back to this is why I unpacked all those things. I don't like my job. I know I don't like my job, but I keep doing it. I don't really like the people I work with that much. I like one or two of them, but overall, and I wasn't proud and privileged to work there. It was kind of one of those things. Someone would be like, "Oh, what do you do?" It'd be like, "Oh, real estate. You're a real estate agent." It just felt like there was this, "Oh, you're one of those greedy fucks." You know what I mean? That being said, there's some really good agents. The guy I worked with for years, Dave Tapper, excellent person, excellent human being, excellent agent, makes tons of money. That was just in my head. I really wanted to be a teacher and do something that worked with people in a different way, and eventually I did. Now, these other things like the roommates, all these things, I felt like, "Oh, I can't change anything." Bullshit. That's where I was wrong. So this is do you wanna hear if everyone's still with me here, do you wanna hear my path out of that fucking well, what I did? And some people are gonna go, "Oh, well, just tell me, just tell me what to do." And I remember this conversation plain as day. I'm talking to my mom, I'm like, "Mom, I just can't. Like, I just can't get out of this feeling." Like, my mom goes, "Well, honey, maybe you should go to the doctor and they can give you something." Again, I didn't accept that. I'm like, "I'm not gonna take fucking pills for, depression." Okay? I was like, "No." So in that moment, I was strong enough, like, and if anyone takes medication for that, I'm not looking down upon you. That was just that moment that I wouldn't accept doing that. Okay. So if you feel like that's a knock on you, that's not directed towards anyone that takes medication for depression. Everyone has a different situation, a different path with that. Okay. I'm just sharing with I'm just sharing what I went through in that moment. So these are some of the things I adopted. Number one, I had a close family member that I had known for years. Uh, Not how should I say known for years? I knew him since I was born, but we were close when we were young, and we had kind of lost touch. But in this moment, he was absolutely 100% there for me, talking to me on the phone, letting me basically being my coach in a lot of ways and letting me vent and giving me his opinion. And he had been through a similar breakup where his partner had actually come back. But he was just there for me. Okay. At a time I really needed it. So I had that. Number two, and I leaned on him and he told me, dude, call me up. Don't call all your friends up because a lot of them don't give a shit and they're going to give you bad advice and they haven't been there before. So just don't go to everyone. And that was actually really good advice. And so I did lean on him and learned quite a bit from him. Number two, I'd always been into exercise. I've talked about this before. I'm not I never followed a plan or anything. I regularly played basketball for years at the YMCA with this lunch group. So I was in pretty good shape. Never was it really into lifting weights or anything like that. But I guess you get a lot of cardio from basketball. I had great camaraderie from this group of guys. I would go to the basketball gyms. For some reason, I didn't like hanging out with that group anymore. Uh, or I wanted to change my schedule. I don't know how I did it or how I started it. There was a park nearby my house. It was there for years. It led to the Bay Area, but the Bay. And I would just go on these runs with an iPod. I don't even think people have iPods anymore. I don't think it only had 100 songs. And I would just go on these long fucking runs. And I would run my ass off and I would take breaks and I would contemplate and I would think. And every time I'd go on these runs, it was my salvation from my sadness, my depression, and I would sort things out in my head. I'd have thoughts. And when I come back from the runs, I'd feel better. I wasn't cured, but I'd feel better. And I'd feel better. I didn't like being in my room. Okay. I didn't like being in my room. I didn't like when I was younger, I used to like to smoke a little herb. I didn't like doing that anymore. It made me feel worse. So as soon as I would get antsy or my mind would be running, I'd go for a run, get outside, go for a run if I was by myself. I did reach out to some friends that I hadn't hung out with before that were really good friends that knew what a breakup was and all these other things, but they would just hang out. They just made an effort to hang out. And I was wounded as fuck. I mean, it was like I said, it wasn't just a break. I was just sad. Now, would it have been easier had my niece and nephew and my sister still lived at the house? Yes, 100%. Because I would have put all that love, time, and energy into hanging out with them because they were like my kids. That being said, who knows? But I never would have grown to what I am now, nor what I ended up growing in that year. Because what I really valued during that time, because I was so sad, and like I said, for me, sadness and being depressed, because I'm the type of person that's very sociable and outgoing, likes to joke around, likes to have fun. It felt like I was walking around uh in a clown, not a clown suit, but like walking around, and I just wasn't myself, and everyone that looked at you'd be like, "What's wrong? Are you okay?" And it would just be embarrassing to me. So I spent a lot of time, like I said, solo runs and going to the library or going to a cafe alone and figuring shit out. And then over time, I started to think to myself, like I said, one thing led to another. Went on a date, double date with a friend of mine. The date didn't even go good, a quote unquote bad date. The girl goes, "Hey, why don't you think about teaching abroad? You always wanted to teach here." I said, "You know what? That's a great idea." I look into it. I look into Thailand. You know, I start getting excited about doing something new that is uncomfortable, because what I think happens, and like I said, this is an opinion, and this is everyone's own thing. When you go from just sadness to depression, there's a certain comfort that you're laying in of if you're stuck. The question is, are you really stuck? Could be, could be, because I'm not going to judge you or your situation and say, "Oh yeah, yeah, just get out of the quicksand, man." No, I'm going to tell you from my own experience, I did feel stuck, but through that close family member, a few friends that hung out with me, putting myself out there, contemplating on my own, what I realized is I was in jail, but I had keys to the cell. What do I mean by that? I had a lot of power to do things. I just was scared to get out of my comfort zone. So, for example, for 3.5, 4 years, I had that real estate job. I knew I didn't like it. I knew I had a plan. I had told myself I'm going to go back to school and get a master's. I'm going to go back to teaching. But you know what? The job was, I'll be frank with you guys, being a residential agent at the time and where I was working, it was easy. It was comfortable. I knew what to do. I knew I could make money. Um, so why would I leave that to challenge myself? Me getting roommates, that was lazy and comfort seeking. Oh, if I get roommates, I won't have to worry about paying as much money every month, and so I don't have to hustle as hard in my job. Um, Quitting real estate. Oh my god, am I capable of going all in and betting on myself and doing what I really want to do? Well, I might have to go without a lot of money for a year. I might have to go out this. I cashed out a 401k that I had from my days of working at Nordstrom's that was like 7 or 8 grand. It probably would be worth about 50 now with the way the stock market's gone, because this was 12 or 13 years ago. Maybe I'm exaggerating it. I cashed that in. You know why? Because I went all in. Because I went, you know what? If life's this low, and I was fucking low. And I mean, I would go out with friends and we'd go out to a place, and a cute girl would come up to us and hang out, and they go, "Fuck, dude, I think she liked you." And I couldn't even get excited. I couldn't even, I just had this, everyone in the room, what's wrong with him? I was like that for fucking months, almost a year. It wasn't until I started going, you know what? What if I just went all in on an exciting, crazy idea where I gave up all this comfort? So I did it. I literally left. I had a listing, if anyone knows about listings for real estate, that was a $900,000 house that was still on the market, that wasn't selling, but it was my listing. And they were great clients, Korean people, great, great, great people. I just went, you know what? I handed it off to my friend. I said, "Go ahead and deal with it. Take it over. I gotta leave." And I booked my flight. I made a plan. I said, I'm going to teach abroad for a year and a half. I'm going to see what happens. And I'm going to have some fucking fun in my late 20s, because if I'm going to feel this fucking down, at least I'm going to take a shot at feeling a lot better. I'm going to take a shot at something completely different. I'm going to live by the beach. I'm going to, go to new places, and I'm going to see what happens. Absolute turning point in my life. And the crazy part about it is once I started going for it, I started feeling better. Like it was weird. Once I started momentum towards a new goal or and here's what I think was the key. I didn't go for safety. I didn't go for comfort. And I realized if you have kids or you have something like that, like everyone's not in the same situation. I'm just sharing my story. I went for if everything went right, how would it like what would be a fucking exciting, what would be a fucking really cool thing? Because right now, where you're at right now, from the outside in, everyone's going, "Oh, you got a really good job. I had a nice car, I had money in the bank. I was, 3 years experience in real estate in a really good market." But deep down inside, my soul was just being like this. It was just, and I was like, if everything went right, what would be really cool? I was like, teach at a university, live by the beach in Thailand. That movie, The Beach with Leonardo DiCaprio. I want to live there. I want to do that. Fucking did it. And it was instant. It was like, it didn't, let me take that back. I didn't do it instantly. It took time. It took time. The process was beautiful though, because the process felt so fucking good. I remember on the opposite moment, on the opposite moment of, when you have a sad moment that leads to, I was on a country road in Thailand walking. It was 80, 90 degrees, and I had my teacher clothes on to a little Thai noodle shop, and I went, fucking did it. Fucking in Thailand teaching. Just I think it was 10 months after the breakup. It felt outstanding. It felt so good because I did something, and I'll tell you what, I talk about it a lot. People kind of glaze over it. If you're feeling really sad and you're feeling really down, do an environmental analysis on where you live. Again, I know not everyone can move. I know that. Where you live counts. Your environment counts. And there's no other time in life, I know the COVID's here, that you can move. And here's a big one. Let's say you live in a suburb that's boring as hell. You live in your parents' house, or you live, and that was nice to grow up in, but in your mid-20s, it's boring. Go get yourself a small ass studio near the beach or downtown, or go fucking, I've ran into people over the years that just lived in Tahoe or Whistler for a year and a half, just to snowboard all year for a year. If you're at ground zero, start exploring these things where you go, what if I just went all in on something really cool? That was 50 minutes right there. That was a spiel, wasn't it? All right. Sorry if I bored you. Sorry if I went all over the place. This was one of those things where I wanted to talk to you about depression and sadness. How do we overcome depression and sadness after a breakup? For me, what worked for me, exercise, specifically going on long runs or jogs outside near nature. I was in a park near the bay, listening to music. Secondly, for me, solitude in quiet places like libraries really calmed me down. Changing my routine helped quite a bit. Once I moved from the place that me and my ex had lived in, that helped quite a bit. Okay. And then what I would add, if you are layering other problems, in with your breakup, separate them. So, for example, I talked about numerous times right here about my job being something I was unhappy with. That had nothing to do with my breakup. Yet during the breakup, I had stacked that all together into like, oh, life's so horrible, right? That was actually something that I could combat directly. The thing about a breakup is once it happens, the other person has free will to do whatever they want. The thing about your career or your job, you're the one that's still guiding that fucking ship. So let me get into the comments. I'm going through deep depression. I'm sorry to hear that. I hope something came of this Jesus alive today. Something from my story or stories or moments. Roller girl, always a pleasure. La la, always a pleasure. Depression and anxiety suck. Can they be overcome? Yes. Depression and anxiety are actually two different things. Depression generally is a feeling of hopeless and being stuck in the past. Anxiety is a feeling of being worried about the future. How do I get unstuck? Was there happily ever after? If you're still on, was there anything from my story or what I talked about that you could pull away that could help you? I'm not necessarily saying you can do the same exact things, but was there anything out of that that you grasped? Well, maybe I'll try that, or maybe I could look at that. Or is there a compelling vision for your future that you're not putting together? So, what I'm saying is, I always wanted to be a teacher at the university level. I always wanted to live by the beach. I always liked the tropics. Um, I always knew I didn't want to live in my hometown forever. I found a way to somehow combine all that shit together. Is there a way where you can take the job you want, the place you want to live, the people you want to hang out? Like, is there a way for you to create that? Ikigai, right? What's up, David Jeffers? It's been a while, buddy. I hope you're well. Sabina, always a pleasure, hon. Mary, I did email you. So you were short till you graduated high school? Yeah. I actually, whenever I run into people from high school, they're always like, wow, you grew, because it wasn't until I was about 17 or 18 I got to 6 feet. When I was 16, I remember my driver's license. I think I was 5'6", 110. I was a shrimp. I remember that things always get better at times of sadness. It's a lesson and a new path awaiting. Absolutely true. Crisis is an opportunity. Rob, I'm sorry you got notified late. I don't know what's up with that. Maybe contact YouTube. My story is that I've had chronic depression since I was about 14. It's a whole place of suck. It's hard to explain. I've been overwhelmingly sad about my breakup for months, but I'm not depressed. Okay. That's good that you can decipher between the two, because I would say sadness is a few notches down from being depressed, right? Or a few notches up. It's not quite as bad. How come my message didn't come out, Mac? I don't know what message you're talking about. That sadness will go away with time. Let new positive things to enter in your life. For sure. One day at a time. You scared me. That sucks. Yikes. I've never had depression. Money does make life better. It does if you use it properly. You know, I always I thought that money did bad things to people, or I looked down on it. The reality is, there's good people and bad people with money. And the reality is, the more money you have, the more opportunity you have to do more good things. Derek Sivers talks about that, and I agree with it. Those fighting, loving couple are a special sort of people, especially when bills don't burden a person with their cash situation, because you don't get sad, you get awesome. Depression, I've had it for so long, just figured it out the last few years. You didn't know you had it, and now you know you have it. Okay, so I'm going through this, but does anyone have a sad moment? I talked about one sad moment compared to the moment I was in depression, and you were able to get through that sad moment. How were you able to get through that? Even on my darkest days, I've never been depressed. Well, good for you, Rob. I'm happy for you, bud. I don't wish it upon anyone. The best way for me was understanding that the past cannot be changed, and it's just a circumstance, and it's neutral. Good for you. The reason I felt sad or depressed was because my present thoughts and my reaction to those thoughts. Past can't be changed, but tomorrow can. I always thought that depression meant crying and sadness. I never knew it was so much more. What's so much more? Exercise is the best medicine for stuff like that. I agree. And it's really interesting because people who don't exercise, and like I said, exercise can be walking. You can walk to the beach. Have you ever thought about how amazing it is when you have a dog or a pet and they just want to go outside for a walk, and how there's so many human beings that actually just want to roost in a room and watch TV? If you have chronic depression, the body's inflammatory state, so it's hurt and you can't exercise, depend on depression. Really? Okay, Sabina, I've haven't read that before, but I believe you. Depend on depression, how strong mind, body are in the moment. Okay. How would someone combat that then? But I had to set the smallest of goals, walking to the mailbox, treadmill for 5 minutes. And when I could do that, I felt like I was making massive gains. Well, thanks, Lala, for sharing that. And I've read that numerous times, and I've done that with different things in my life. Make a small goal to make some progress. Get you, Lala. It's good you could recognize those gains and progress. Taking the risk of stepping out the comfort zone is the best way to give yourself a reset when you're in the rut. It really is, actually. But what you really need what you really need to take some time on is get in touch with a compelling, exciting idea for the future. And a lot of people do this with vacations, right? Well, I'm going to go, we're going to go on this vacation, so they have something to look forward to every year. Could you make it even bigger than that? The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss, the title really pulls a lot of people in. The book's not really about creating a 4-hour work week. It's more about creating a lifestyle or going after what it is you really want, and having the ability to live a more exciting lifestyle. Going through this situation, it's been almost 5 months, definitely in a better spot, but damn, this pandemic, it's slowing down my progress. Car addict, everyone's dealing with it, and everyone's got to deal with it in different ways because of the different ways they're handling it in different cities. But you got to adapt, bro. You got to do the best you can, and understand that at some point there's going to be some silver linings from this thing. And like I said, one of them is a lot of people are going to be able to have more flexibility working away from work. My thing is if you're really worried about getting this thing, if that's your thing, not you necessarily, car addict, then improve your immune system, make it work for you. What investments do you have then? I have my pension. Okay. Oh, Rob will be a good person to talk about that, Jen. What's your definition of luxury? Great story, coach. Thanks, car addict. Depends on the size of the bag. Luxury is a lifestyle that shouldn't be a burden to your life. It should be a compliment. New Leaf 88. Have you been on before, New Leaf? Hi, everyone. I think living with an abundance mentality really helped me in a lot of things. Not only relationships, I stopped caring if one girl didn't like me or block me because there's 1 billion more. How did you get to that point, New Leaf? Was there because a lot of people will be like, oh, that's easy to say. Was there a moment? Or, how did you get to an abundance mentality? Was there some turning point? For me, it was realizing my self-worth and really building myself back up into something stronger. And get started. The interesting thing about this story I just shared, and maybe it was fragmented and all over the place. I'm not sure how easy it was to follow, because I didn't write this out. But and I didn't know I was going to go this far with it. But once I could start talking, I'm like a wind up clock. Once you think about what you really want. So for example, I always wanted to be a teacher. I knew I didn't want to teach high school in California. And everyone was like, oh yeah, you can go do that. You got a history degree. But it didn't fit. And then I remember I was going and you got to take all these tests to be a teacher in California. And so the first test is a CBEST test. And I went and took it, some high school in San Francisco or something. And I think I didn't pass one part of it and this, that. But I knew I wanted to be a teacher, but what I didn't narrow down is where and what level. And so sometimes that's what's clouding your compelling future, is that you're looking at it from one angle instead of an aerial view. And that's something I help people with actually in coaching. I watched the 100 Rejection TED Talk today. I like it a lot. It was good, right? 100 Rejections TED Talk. It's actually a video I've suggested to, or compulsory for some of my students in public speaking. I think the one-itis thing really hurts guys. You can never own a girl. They always leave at some point. Great point, New Leaf. I agree 100%. Were you born in 88? Yes, that works too. Glad to hear it. Combat chronic depression besides meds, eating healthy. That's underrated, actually. I agree with you. Such as omega fat acid to stop brain inflammation, different therapy methods, future fantasy planning, plan on changing life. I never thought of future fantasy planning. Different therapy methods. I like the fact that you wrote different. I like hypnotherapy. I haven't done much Reiki, but I would definitely try that. There's all kinds of things. Yeah. eating healthy, omega fat acid. You know what I eat a lot of recently for snacks? Sardines and mackerel canned. Is that good or bad if they're canned in olive oil? They're loaded with omega fat. Tastes good, actually. Thank you. What was 2 years ago? Oh, thank you. That was 2 years ago. I think for me, it was just thinking about it logically. Like there are many people. I think it was just thinking about it logically. Like there are many people. It's not logical to get stuck on one. I just woke up one day. Awesome. That's how. Your mind, let it go. Coach, read about half of Letting Go today. I found it repetitive, but I agree with his ideas. If you let go of a negative point of view and exchange them for positive, you can make a sea of change. Yeah, you know what's interesting about that, Lala? I've come across that book, and I think so. I listened to it on Audible, and at first I didn't like it in some ways, and some things were repetitive. Some things I know about already, and then I listened to it the second time quite a bit, and it's a long-winded book, and some of his examples are very simplified. That being said, I did get some interesting things from it. I think it's a useful book to. I think it's a useful book for letting go, and letting go is such a big part of depression and sadness. And it's one of the biggest things we have, myself included. And not even when being sad or depressed, but being angry or upset with an individual, holding a grudge, which is something I've done in my life before. It really hurts you moving forward. And so the whole premise of letting go, if you can get 3 or 4 things from that book, which is a 12-hour audiobook, I don't know how long it would be to read. And what did you feel, Lala, in your opinion, about the idea that he has given numbers to these feelings? Because at first I'm like, where did these numbers even come from? You just make this shit up? It's kind of interesting, right? He actually gives the lowest level of frequency of energy. I don't know if you've, Sabina, you're pretty well read. Rob, you're pretty well read. Have you read the book Letting Go by David Hawkins? He also has a book called Power versus Force, which I haven't read in a long time. But he actually gave ratings through feelings, and I believe the lowest. What would you think would be the lowest frequency feeling you could have? So when I say feelings, there's blame, there's guilt, there's envy, there's jealousy. There's the one that he said was the lowest level of the human frequency of energy. If I'm even saying that correctly, is shame. I would say that's probably true. Guilt is the most common low frequency of energy. The amount of guilt you feel through pleasing your parents, doing something that you want to do, but your parents aren't going to like. The amount of people that contact me that are, I'm so thankful because my childhood wasn't perfect, but as I got older, I had a lot. Both of my parents are good parents, but I never felt like their expectations of me were something I had to follow. And this sounds kind of bad. I think the expectations weren't very high. It was more like, well, get a good job and do what you can. Like my father was like, you're not going to go to school. I'll get you a job truck driving if you want. I never had this push to become a doctor or become this, but people you talk to, it's a big burden as they get older. Okay, does anyone have any closing questions? We're an hour deep into this. Nobody likes anyone selfish. It's very human to be empathetic, but dangerous if you date people with selfish narcissists. You're right. Isn't that interesting? Like there is a certain groove or someone lined up that a narcissist could just feast on. That is so true. he's good at pointing out how reframing experience is game changing. That's something that I fought. And the interesting thing about that, that's going to be the premise of my book. But um, the originator of that is Viktor Frankl, logotherapy, which he references. Um, what I got from it, like I said, that I hadn't noticed before is taking the feeling and neutralizing the feeling and pushing away the thoughts that accompany the feeling. That was something that I hadn't really. What's really interesting about an Audible book or even reading a book, it really depends on where you're at when you're reading it. Don't you agree? Not just in your life, but maybe, are you in like I really had a time, I was at this hotel, I'm overlooking the sea, and it was brunch, in a hotel place where you get omelets and all these things and all these people are walking around. And I just had a coffee and I was just overlooking the sea, and I listened to my Audible book for like an hour and a half. And I think with the coffee and it being the morning, like it just sunk in a different way. There's difference in personality about shame issue dealing with it. Well, what do you mean by that, Sabina? Can you elaborate? Do you think selfish men can see it through you? I think that people have types that suit them, and whether they know that they're seeking out because some people don't know that they're seeking out a certain type. They're not self-aware or mindful. They just live life and kind of just go on doing things. But definitely people seek out certain types that make them feel better or do the things they want. And so, yeah, I would say that a narcissist definitely would benefit from someone that is empathetic, um, and pleasing or accommodating, or dare I say, someone that feels guilty all the time, a pleaser. I mean, this narcissist deal with shame very bad. Okay. I haven't read it yet. Okay. It's an old book. It's not. I think the reason I hadn't read it before is Joseph Rodriguez, who I've talked about his channel. And I really like Joseph, and I've talked to him directly. He's even done some coaching with me, not about a breakup or anything. I just like his approach and his knowledge. And so when he offered some coaching, and it was more or less about YouTube and some other things, but I just wanted to talk to him because I really like his channel on book reviews. He had a great book review on the book, and so I kind of went off that instead of listening to the whole book, which it's better to listen to the book because you just get more details that you get. And that's give Joseph his plug here. He's a good dude, really good. He's a Toronto guy. I'm innocent. It helped me decide I had nothing to lose because I wasn't in a relationship at this point by reaching out to the ex. I asked to meet him for a drink, and he said yes. Fortune favors the bold. Right on, Lala. I'm happy for you, hon. Good. Good for you. Fortune favors the bold. I actually haven't heard that statement before. This is great. Good for you, hon. What about the lack of self-worth? With lack of self, what would be the feeling? So in the letting go book, he would want to know, well, what's the feeling that you get from a lack of self-worth? He would say that there's a specific feeling someone has. Mary, work on yourself, getting stronger mentally, so you will be less attracted to those men. What's up, Jasper J? You're a little late to the party. I had a long-winded story earlier, but you're always welcome. Hawaii's finest. Does it bug you? I think it's such a cheap show. Do you see that show Hawaii 5-0? There's a new Hawaii 5-0. One moment. Hello? Yeah. Oh, are you? Can you wait a few minutes? Couple minutes, okay? All right. Like, okay. Just finished with I'm the same, dude. That's so funny, Jasper J. I watch a lot. I don't watch a lot, but you know what I actually like to watch is interviews. I like Tim Ferriss. I like Joe Rogan, although sometimes Joe Rogan, but I like interviews. A friend of mine was like, "How do you watch these hour and a half, 3 hour of interviews?" I think it's because that's what I want to do down the road. Um, yeah. Have you seen the new one? I don't watch it. It's just cheese whiz, man. Um, oh, okay. Oh, you like Joe Rogan too? Okay. Real estate. My road is that a channel? You know what? I don't watch Netflix as near as I used to. The latest thing I started to watch for a little bit was a documentary on the New York mob. That seemed pretty good, but I kind of lost interest. I like Joe Rogan too. Um, if you like if you like Joe Rogan, I would say Tim Ferriss podcast is pretty good. Um, kind of a different approach. Tim Ferriss might not be as funny, like Bigger Pockets and Stephen Graham. I like watching Ali Abad. I don't know who that is. Thomas Frank's cool. I've seen his channel. He's got a really cool channel. Maybe that's something I should review one day for my channel. Some of these other channels that I like. I mean, Thomas Frank's cool though. He's got good tips, useful stuff. Yeah, I like him. Okay. I think I've seen Ali Abad. Maybe he teaches kind of lessons, right? Frank Thomas. I remember Frank Thomas from the White Sox and then the A's. Yeah. I'm not sure if with real estate, if you're into real estate, a good website that I kind of like, Movado, which is a little different than Zillow. Yeah, I've seen him. He's cool. Yeah, he's good, man. He teaches really well, Jasper Jake. Yeah, cool, man. Um, I've actually I've actually liked his style of lessons and where he goes with that. I really do. Yeah, cool, man. That's a compliment. That's a compliment to me that you watch my channel and those other people because those are people I respect, man. But I would eventually like to do something like Joe Rogan interview style with not necessarily famous people. I think it would be fun to interview just people. Like that's the coolest thing is about living abroad for so long and just meeting different people. I got a friend, one of my best friends that I've known for 10 years, and we started out. He's from Wales, and he was coming over here to teach, and we were in this teacher training program in Chiang Mai, Thailand, and we've just been friends ever since. He's 50 now, totally different walk of life. Grew up on a farm. Uh, was a really good rugby player when he was young. Was an engineer for concerts and different things. I mean, totally different walk of life. Would have never met him in my circle in the Bay Area or California, and it turned out to be one of my good friends. But like someone like that, he's got a ton of life experience to go through. That he's not famous and rich, but he's just a good person and he's cool people. Wouldn't it be interesting just to hear? I'm sure people don't want like, oh, let's interview deadbeats, but that could be interesting to some people actually. How low can you go? But yeah, I would like to just interviewed, like rather than because it seem like as much as I like Joe Rogan, all these they'll take someone, they'll take someone from like Andrew Huberman's the new one right now from Stanford, and they'll be on every show. So someone will get the Eric Weinstein, all these guys get interviewed like in this rotation. I'm sorry, Lala, I don't know what that means. Um, Atentes for is that a different language? These are a lot of seemingly normal people who have done extraordinary things. It's amazing when you talk to people. You know what book I just bought used? There's a great used bookstore here in Phuket. It's like you save so much on buying a book used. Tribe of Mentors by Tim Ferriss, where he just goes through 10 questions. I thought it was great because you can kind of cherry pick whose opinions you want. Yes, one person goes all around. Do you understand what I mean, Sabina? Tribe of Mentors, though, like I kind of took a break because like I said, I've listened to so many podcasts by Tim Ferriss, but it's a useful book. I didn't read Tools of Titan yet. But yeah, the one person that goes all around shows, and then if you watch them, you're like, oh, he's answering and talking about the same questions again. Impact Theory has some really good guests, and I like his questions. I've talked about this before. The fact that he wears like Hollywood dog tags, you might get a kick out of that, Jasper, because you're a Marine. And it's just his style. You know what I mean? It's just like, do you know what I'm talking about? Have you guys seen Impact Theory? Because the Impact Theory, he has really good guests, similar to Joe Rogan. He has a different approach. He asks pretty good questions. But yeah, sometimes, but he'll wear like some expensive ass Nikes, that are like, he has a different pair of shoes on all the time, which the guy's worth like 400 million or something. That guy from Impact Theory, he invented some health bar. It's good. It's a good, like I said, he has good guests and stuff. He has good guests. That's one of those ones. And that's, like I said, I think I'm attracted to those because down the road, I want to do that. I want to have a show where I interview or have a co-host and kind of go about it. This is going to be my thing. Next step. All right, folks, it's been a pleasure. It's been good. I got someone waiting outside, actually, appointment about something. Okay, so talk to you again. It's been great. If you guys want to join my Instagram, it's Coach Mac McCarthy. I've been posting pictures from Thailand. Those aren't stock photos. Those are real pictures of where I live. The sunsets or sun go down. Those are real photos from where I live. Absolutely, dude. Absolutely. Like I said, I just think that, especially in what I've done, everyone's got credible stories, man. And you know where I really came across is teaching public speaking. Everything's about your own story, right? Without the sour, you can't taste the sweet, as the great Vanilla Sky movie says. And that's the truth. And if you're going through depression or sadness right now, my heart goes out to you. But realize and ask yourself the question, where's my power in any given situation? And without the sour, you can't taste the sweet, because when you get back on deck, it's going to feel that much better, right? And if someone else is in the same situation, you're going to be a lot more compassionate. Chi Hu from the crowd. Okay. See ya. It's curtains.